Today we're gonna discuss the topic kind of more organizational. How do you start your Siebel Open UI transformation journey? What phases this journey could be split into? How to make sure that our new UI is not just looking fancy, but also delivers value to the users and the company. And also, I think the most important area here is that how do we actually convince our companies to make investment into Siebel UX? Because as I kind of had discussion with some of you, you were saying that okay, it makes sense to invest into the UX if this is a customer-facing application and you have hundreds of thousands online users for your solution. But if it's just internal application for 2,000 users, how do you kind of justify that it's kind of good things to do? So basically, these topics we're gonna cover today. So I will turn off the video. Okay, so just to recap, because this is second webinar we run in the series of Nexus'19 project. And the idea behind Nexus'19 project is that how do we unlock a rich user experience for Siebel Open UI? And just to recap, main points we discussed last time was that, okay, first, we feel that in order to come up with a modern web experience for Siebel users, we need to start using modern development approaches in Siebel UI. And with that, we mean that we should start adopting frameworks which support component-based UI architecture, and then also design systems, either public ones or internal ones, which companies has developed on their own, which prescribe in the very little detail all the visual elements of the interface, how different icons should work, how fonts should work, how we should arrange the information, how different components operate at different states, and so on. So someone told that great designs do not happen by accident, so it's a result of kind of very well crafted work. And actually, when we see the intersection of these two things, like modern frameworks and design system, we also get a reusable UI components library, because usually as a part of the design system, you would get this particular components implementation also in the code. And in this way, we can move with development much faster. Next point, that's where our kind of work comes into the game. So we have built this Nexus Bridge JavaScript, which effectively wraps around the Siebel Open UI presentation model so that you can get access to pretty much all Siebel configuration. And then it provides an API which allows much easier development of the custom UI render using modern frameworks, so that we can get benefits of the design system, reusable components, or whatever. And maybe compared to other approaches when we could be building custom web application which would talk to Siebel through the REST services, for example, or through SOAP services, or in some other way, we also have to invest a little bit less in this development, or significantly less in this development. Because with this approach, we can fully reuse the Siebel configuration, because we again natively plug into the Open UI, so you can say that it is all Open UI. And then we do not need to invest into development of these integration layers and then expose the REST services in Siebel, which is possible, but still it's quite a lot of work to do, and it is additional complications in the architecture of the solution. Also, what I find here at Idea PORT RIGA is that we get really easily carried out by all these great possibilities which come through web frameworks and material design system implementation in different component libraries, or React Lightning component library. We can build this experience like Midnight UI we have been demonstrating to you, and which you saw on the background, which is really stand out of traditional Siebel UI as we used to see that. Also, at the last webinar, when somebody commented can we get this Midnight UI, so I was commenting that it kind of doesn't make any sense for you to do that, because before we have to move ahead with the design and technology, we have to do this one more thing, which is to embrace user-centered design, which effectively is the path to the great user experience. This user-centered design can come in the different brandings or labels or the concepts. Somebody can just talk about UX or design thinking or service design or user-centered design, but effectively there are few components that all of these approaches share. So that first, that the user is very important for us. So we really spend time to understand the user, to understand the way how they work, what problems they want to solve, what's stopping the users to solve their problems in the most effective way. Then we try to give a try to big collection of different ideas how we can solve those user problems. Then we select several ideas for prototype development, and then we test these prototypes with the user. So if we see that our new UI is able to solve user problem, then move ahead and create development item in our backlog. But if we see that it is not fully solving the problem, or it's not solving the problem satisfactorily, so we kind of restart the cycle again. Starting with the user, coming up with many different ideas how we solve the user problems, and trying out through some of the prototypes the solution before we write any single line of code in Siebel or in JavaScript framework. UX or design thinking or user-centered design, it's not typically the terminology of the approach we use in our Siebel project, so that's kind of something new for us. Probably in your companies there are a lot of people working with the end customer facing applications who do talk about UX and user-centered design and all these things, but sooner or later, and we hope that it's going to be sooner, these approaches also will come to the development of employee-facing applications like Siebel. Okay, and here I have a few links you could explore on your own. The one from IBM, it just gives very good introduction to design thinking and what the approach is and what kind of exercises they do. So there are different levels you can earn as a kind of part of acknowledgement, or not really certification, with different tokens, and then the practitioner is entry level, which is free of charge. There are a lot of courses on LinkedIn, really good ones, especially from this Chris Notter. Then definitely when it comes to trying out different ideas and testing those with the users, the sprint book, which is sort of produced by Google Ventures, is a really good one. And you can see also there are many companies running workshop around these design sprint ideas. Basically, how do you deliver, how do you solve a big problem and test these ideas within limited time frame. So originally it's 5 days. The last but not the least is Nielsen Norman Group, which we like the idea PORT RIGA a lot, and that's where our people go to learn stuff. So they have the format that they have 7 days UX conferences around the globe. I think the one in London starts this weekend, then there will be one in Amsterdam during the summer, and many more going on in the States and Canada, and perhaps some in Asia as well, but I'm not really following that market. And basically within 7 days, you would have quite a big variety of the courses, 1-day courses, which would dedicate certain methods you should apply as you do this UX or design thinking and this sort of thing. You can start in a small way and learn basic ideas, but in order to grasp more detailed methodology and to be able to run or use these methods yourself, I recommend you to go to the Nielsen Norman Group conferences. As we talk about the UX benefits and why do we have to do that, of course, we can split them into 2 categories. So one is our users, and of course, in addition to having just nice application to work with, we have to address other things as well. How easy it is to use the application, how many mistakes I'm making if I have to accomplish some tasks. About my productivity, am I able to do the tasks that I'm given in the most efficient way or not? Or I have to waste time on this ridiculous interface that somebody gave to me. But still at the end, it's also about having these inner needs of the users met. And they could go from, let's say, being able to accomplish the work on time so that I have less stress during my work, or it could go to something else, like the company really shows me respect and it really cares about the environment I'm working with. I have this great coffee machine, I have very ergonomic desk which is going up and down as I want to, and in the meeting room there is this nice huge screen so that everybody can see what's going on. And how about then IT systems? Can you provide me such a great and modern interface in the IT systems as well? Why not? Because companies should care about employees. And then we go to the company benefits. So of course, especially if we have these inner needs of the employees met, the company gets satisfied employees, which is very important for everyone working in the market right now. So definitely we can go ahead and decrease the training costs. And we all heard the stories about manuals for 1,000 pages somebody have to read, or 100 short video clips recorded on how to use Siebel applications. And then where still the most of the business case comes is operational efficiency. How we could be completing the same amount of work using less cost, or how we can reduce the cycle time for different transactions we're working in Siebel, or if we kind of have a big backlog in the company and we're not able to invoice our work rapidly, how do we create quotes on time, how we can cut down this backlog. And that's where companies can come up with different business case justification for UX improvements. Okay, still as I explained before, at least it's kind of my experience. So if we go to Siebel customer and say, hey, how about doing some design thinking exercise or design sprint, solving some complicated UX problems so that we have, or just user problems, they are reporting to, or figuring out a way how to implement certain business feature or functionality. You will not see anyone kind of really reacting to you, or at least to your words saying like design thinking, user-centric design, UX. So still, I think the kind of status quo is that UX is about making Siebel look good, basically aesthetics, but then, it is kind of our job to educate our customers a little bit further so that we can get all the benefits of the UX. But still, the environment is that nobody is really waiting with a ready-made budget for you, and again, able to find the reason why we have to increase or improve usability of the Siebel application, because at the end of the day, it's not customer-facing application. In my understanding, we have to take this really pragmatic approach, and we have to be able to achieve things with a smaller budget to operate. And for that reason, for the most Siebel implementation, we have to really take this very pragmatic approach to Open UI transformation. Some of these exercises we run already now. Some of them we still have to live through ourselves at PORT RIGA. But first, what is important for us is to demonstrate opportunities to our business and basically show them how this new UI could look for selected use case, and then how we can improve the usability for the user. And basically, there are a few things I kind of would like to focus here. First, it's about demonstrating, because for most of us, all I see is all there is. So when the business stakeholders have something kind of tangible in front of them, which they can relate to, instead of having this very abstract discussion about how good design means good business and this sort of things, they understand the idea much better, especially if this new design that we kind of showing to them is coming from their environment, and also if we are able to show to them how currently users are doing particular process or task flow within Siebel, what problems they face, and how our proposed design would improve the usability. So, giving them something visual, something very concrete and easy to understand is an important step to start moving ahead. Then next, we could move on with the next phase, which is prove the case for UX with the first win. And again, we could start from that phase as well. That's what we do for one of our customers in Finland right now, in the manufacturing industry, but also it could be the continuation of the first phase, so that we have this basic UI concept, which is evidence and research based. Then we fine tune it to the user testing as well, so that it's really that the design is production ready. And then we build and deploy this new UI, ideally in the production environment, so that customers is actually able to get the benefit out of the investments they are making. But at the same time, it is kind of a bigger commitment from the business point of view if they have something already in the production environment. Then once we've demonstrated how this new Siebel UI is able to help the users, what kind of great feedbacks we're getting from the users, how we make them more productive, or remove some of the dull tasks they do every day, then we could also demonstrate how some of the particular business metrics are moving thanks to improved process implementation in Siebel and improved efficiency for that. To keep it kind of pragmatic, so and we all know that in general, Siebel implementations are tens and hundreds of different use cases, depending on the customer segment, of the process we are working, type of the product, geographies, and things like that. So, and obviously, doing the research and design for each of the use case from scratch, it would take ages for us to complete the transformation. And the idea is that once we have this business commitment, and again, we prove that UX improvement in Siebel application can bring companies significant benefits, we should be scaling with the design templates. And again, the idea here is that to understand that we do comprehensive analysis of majority of the use cases which are done in Siebel for different customer groups, for the products, geographies, processes they work with. As we do that, we also come up with some design templates, which I'll explain to you in a minute. But basically, the idea is that we know that the users are here to achieve certain tasks. For example, in the homepage view, on the dashboard view, we want to understand overall situation with our workload, and so maybe some of the business metric we have to follow. Then definitely we see a lot of patterns when users solve users tasks, they use many lists, and then how we are able to organize the work with this list in the most efficient way for the user. As we kind of build in this Midnight UI, we would all have the summary view, of particular records with all child records and maybe some timeline going on, so that the user can quickly grasp overall 360-degree situation with the customer. Perhaps we would need some of the design templates or design patterns for more complex tasks would involve several steps. If we talk about Siebel terms, some kind of task-based UI sort of scenarios. When we have these standard design templates figured out, then we would start matching the requirements for each and every use case to these design templates, which is, should be much more productive and less time consuming compared to designing every use case from scratch. And then in this way, case by case, we would transform Siebel UI until the moment the customer feels that that's enough. So we've done most of the work. And then about the design systems, and also since we're kind of talking about design templates before, in the design system world, one of the methodology which is quite popular and widely adopted is this atomic design, and Brad Frost is the author of it. So, and basically the idea is that all the UI components that you would have on the screen, they would fit to one of the categories of scale. So the minimum ones are atoms, then which they make molecules, and molecules make organism. And again, if you try to break it into kind of elements of the Midnight UI, we have been demonstrated before, then the atoms would be different buttons, labels, field values, items, text areas, and things like that. Then on the molecule level, we would assemble a bit larger elements or components out of these atoms. It could be the element or component for picking up some contacts and associating them with the account opportunity. It could be some other things as well. And then if we sort of talk about or move on about more complicated structures, then we talk about organisms which are made of different atoms and molecules altogether. In this example, how one record in the activity timeline would look like in different statuses. But then the next level from this atomic design are the templates, and these are common templates I'm talking about. Here you would have kind of overall layout of the screen. In addition to that, you would also add some of the navigation patterns, like what happens if I click on the different elements here, how this UI is shown as different dates. But then as we sort of match use cases with these design templates, then we end up with actual Siebel screens or pages that they are called in the atomic design. This would be sort of this last phase when we figure out our own design templates or design patterns. And then as we sort of have this comprehensive understanding of majority of the use cases implemented in Siebel, again, case by case, we could transform needed amount of screens or pages within Siebel UI, and then achieve this holistic transformation in pretty much a rapid space. We have prepared this more detailed breakdown of what kind of activities you would perform in each of these phases. Also, how much time it could take and the cost in hours. This example. As a last point for this webinar, or like as we kind of promise that we kind of want to give you the planner for the first transformation phase. And this first transformation phase is demonstrate opportunity, and we call it also like 6-day sprint. So we would have these 6 days, and going back to the idea that the goal of this first phase is to demonstrate to the business very concrete UI concepts, which is rooted in customer Siebel implementation. So they have very good understanding what is it all about. So it's their UI, not some abstract Midnight UI, for example. And then, of course, all these foundings are based on the user research we have been doing. Now we'll just run through each of these 6 days. So day 1, it's a Siebel and process deep dive. That's actually what we have been doing last week in Finland. So first, we would have an interview with the process expert about general process flow and a different variation of this process flow. It would take like 2-3 hours. Then we also go back to Siebel experts and ask them, how this particular process is implemented in Siebel, what is Siebel data model, overall approach to configuration of Siebel, like do they use a lot of custom components or they customize the vanilla ones. And after we've done these interviews, we kind of start to setting up the user journey map, which we'll also be delivering at the end of these 6 days. The diagram, which is showing what customer has to do in order to accomplish a certain goal, and then through which phases they have to go through, what activity they do, what they feel about doing these activities, and what are the pain points they experience, and then what opportunities we find out for particular phase. Once we started to grasp this process and we would map it to the user journey map, we'd also prepare the user interview guide. And this user interview would also flow as this process phases flow, which is also kind of linked back to the user journey map we started to develop. At the second day, we get out from this conceptual and abstract world of processes and PowerPoints and Siebel tools, effectively. And then we start interviewing and observing the users. And it is critical that we get at least 2 users. Ideally, they should be working on the same process, but on flight to different version of it so that we are able to cover a wider scope. And then after a short interview about the user role, what they do during the day, what kind of tasks they perform, and the overall experience with Siebel and with this company, we basically just observe how they execute this everyday task related to the process we study. We also ask users to explain what they do, why they do it a certain way, and how they perform this task. And then in total, we spend 3 or 4 days with each of the users. I think it's kind of fun stuff to do this user research and fitting together with the users, because as like Siebel professional yourself, you've been doing development and process design for many years, but it's kind of hard to look at what's going on really in the field and how users are using your system. And whatever it is system or it is a process you designed, trust me, like in the real life, it looks somewhat different. But that's actually the reality, not abstract world, like abstract bubble we kind of lock ourselves in as a Siebel professional. Then what we do after we've done this observation part, the user research with these two users, we perhaps have quite a lot of questions back to the process and Siebel expert guys, so we go and talk to them. And then we also create like the main structure for the user journey map, because we kind of validated it to a large extent with these users. And then we prepare the usability test, which is the focus for the day number 3. To run usability test, at least it's a Nielsen Norman Group recommendation, and the same idea you get in this design sprint book, that for usability test you have to have at least 5 users, and this 5 users, this number go back to the 90s when Jacob Nielsen had this study on how many usability issues we can find by increasing the number of users. And the idea is that 80-85% of the usability issues you are able to discover just by doing usability test with 5 users. The structure for the usability test is such that based on our user journey map, we would create 5 to 7 basic tasks, which again reflect different phases of the user journey map. And then after, we ask users to perform it in the application. And then after each task, we would stop and ask the users to rate their experience. And then we kind of ask them a few things. First, we ask them to rate on a scale from 1 to 7, how easy it was to complete the task. Very difficult would be 1 and very easy would be 7. Then we would ask them about how they felt about performing this task. So, very frustrated, like 1, and very satisfying, 7. And how easy do they think the users could make mistake as they do this task? So, very easily to make mistake, it's 1, and like nearly impossible to make mistake, it's kind of 7. We would also record, we'll do the video and screen recording of this usability test session so that we can refer to something as we first analyze the usability of the application. Then once we've done that, so we again summarize the findings while we still remember what was going on. And then practically with this day 3, we conclude this field research when we actually have to go and see the users and be on site as well. So from that point on, we can also move off site, like back to Riga for our case. Then what do we do in day 4? We again start applying different UX methods to come up with some recommendations. So first we all gather together and review the results of the field work we've been doing for the first 3 days. Now we have enough of the evidence and the information to complete the user journey map. We use this method called pure scorecard, which is basically giving you a score for usability of the particular scenario, like the one we have tested. And then I will kind of touch on it a bit later. And then we also prepare the list of the current UX pain points. And of course, since we are focusing on the UI in this transformation, and we do not want to touch anything related to Siebel and the process, even though sometimes that's the only way to achieve kind of better UX as well. So we split those UX pain points severally. So, some pain points could be UI related, something we could address through improved UI, and some other non-UI items, we park them so that we later also pass this information to our Siebel colleagues or discuss it with the process team. Like, can we really improve the process in a certain way so that it is easier to accomplish certain tasks? Or if there is huge variation of how people do standard tasks in different countries, is there a way to unify it in a certain way or not? Overall, in this UX research domain, you would have 4 types of research methods, if I want to sound really smart. So there are qualitative and quantitative, there are summative and informative. Big part relates to how actually we are able to provide some numbers, how we're actually able to measure the usability. This is definitely kind of a big discussion for the companies who have a lot of budget to invest in this qualitative usability assessments through either analytical tools or running quantitative usability tests for 40 users or more. Definitely there are mechanisms to do that. Since we are trying to take this pragmatic approach, we really like this pure methodology, which stands for pragmatic usability rating by experts. But also, it's not just about ease of use or the usability. It is also correlated to some extent to the task completion time. The idea is this works in such a way that we take the tasks users would need to do in order to accomplish certain flow. And again, this would pretty much be the same 5 to 10 tasks we have been testing during usability test. Then we kind of spell it out. Then we observed how the users are performing this task in the application. So we split each of these tasks into steps. And kind of step boundary is a significant system response to the user action, which could be navigation to another screen, or some kind of screen popping up, or pushing the button and waiting for screen to refresh with automatically generated trackers in Siebel, or something like that. Basically, if the user is doing something, then there is significant response, and it means that we're kind of moving to the next step. Then once we've got the steps figured out, we evaluate them. And the idea is that we kind of assign the colors and numbers. If we rate this task with 1, which is also green color, it means that it was very easy to accomplish the task. So if we rate it with 2 or yellow, it means that there was some notable degree of cognitive load user had to go through in order to perform it. Like, I have to, check certain things on the screen if it is the same or not, so that I'm not making a mistake, or just waiting and waiting for the system to do something and really getting frustrated with that. Number 3, or red color, it is like very difficult for the user to perform this task, and they are running into the dead ends or into the errors, and then they have to go back. So something really bad with the performance of this task. Here we would have these different tasks, so like download, install, create account. All the steps would be indicated as a bar, and then we would assign that number and color to each of the bars. And then we would sum them all together. Like, for download, it would be 2 plus 1 plus 2, so it results 5. As the color of this total sum for task would also come from the worst usability color. So if you have everything green but 1 yellow, it's still yellow. If you have everything like here, yellow and green, but 1 red, so it's going to be red. And then we also calculate the total score for this task flow that we have been evaluating. The greener it is and the smaller score you get, the better. And then as we come up with the different UI designs or evaluate different options of the UI, then we could use this pure score as a measure of the usability, but also it relates to the task completion time. So if we have to do 15 tasks or steps, very simple, it's still 15 scores we are getting. And if we are able to get it into 2 steps, even though it could be, one of them could be like yellow or 2, it's still better than from task completion time perspective. As I told, we could use this scorecard as the baseline for comparing our different designs we are coming up. If it's customer-facing application, we could measure our design against the competitors, like how easy it is to order the service on the competitor sites compared to our site. And then, especially, which is very good for us, as we kind of improve Siebel UI over time, then we also can refer back to this pure score over and over again to see what kind of progress we are making for selected use cases, or for all use cases. Day 5, that's where the fun starts. At this point, at least when we had it running last and this week, we gathered more UI and then UX and also the UI developers into the room. We explained them the findings of this user research. We described them the use case, what users are doing, where we see the main obstacles are. And again, under this pure scorecards, there is like an Excel file which different experts have to fill in, but also it kind of calculates the score for you. And again, in the detail, we explain how come it is 9 here and red and not like 2 and green. Once they know what sort of problem we have to address, so they research how similar pain points are solved by other designs, just by Googling or going to competitors' applications or some other applications, just to get an inspiration. Then we move into this phase when each team member independently on their own tries to come up with a huge amount of sketches or some ideas, how this particular interface or element of the interface could be solved. After doing that, each would also kind of combine his best ideas into 1 or 2 UI solutions for discussion or evaluation. After that phase, we would have these different UI prototypes, if you will, drawn on the paper. So it's still paper and pen we're talking about, so that we could do the voting or appraisal of each of the UI solution. And basically, each of the team member does the dot voting on the entire or part of the UI proposal by every colleague. Then we sort of calculate the dots and determine what are one or two winning concepts. We select those, enrich this concept with the good ideas. We can borrow from the other proposal, which didn't win, but some parts were really interesting ones. And then we start development of low fidelity, so basically very rough static UI prototypes. We will be kind of showing the actual fields from the UI, but it's not going to be a clickable prototype which we could test with the users. So the important thing is that the business stakeholders are able to recognize that this is their UI, and then with our explanation, we could describe how this UI would solve their problems. And all of this happening during the last 6 days. In the morning, we would finalize all the deliverables and prepare the presentation for the stakeholders. And then in the afternoon, like 2 or 3 o'clock, we would have 1 or 2 hour session organized. So first we would describe what we have done, what kind of evidence we have gathered. If time allows, also show small video clips from the observations we made with the users. Because when we as IT guys or consultants or specialists explaining to our stakeholders our findings, they understand in the conceptual level. But when we show them these small video clips of how actual users are struggling with certain functionality or how inefficient certain things are, it kind of causes totally different response from the stakeholders. Then we also show this user journey map, which is also here on the left. So, what is the user persona, what scenario, what's the goal and expectation they have. So it's zone 1, zone 8 in this picture here. Then we would have these different phases a user have to accomplish in order to fulfill scenario or reach their goals. And this would roughly correspond to the tasks we were asking them to perform. Then here you would have also some detailed tasks that users were doing in the system, like steps actually. Then maybe here we'd have some quotes from the users, maybe some video clips, and then we also show how frustrated and satisfied they are doing their job during particular steps of the process. Then here we'd also identify different opportunities, how we could address those pain points as well. How might we solve user problems? And this kind of serves pretty good deliverable of this work. So if you kind of print it on A3 format, the color fits a good deliverable. And I saw that once we've been doing some of these user journey maps, the managers would also post it on their wall so that they kind of have an understanding what's going on in the field. We would feed all these non-UI issues or improvement ideas to Siebel or process teams, for them to address. Then we'd also score or show this current UI pure score, explain them what the pain points were, and then we would show them, how we would solve those pain points with this new design concept, describing how particular UI would solve particular pain points. And I think at this stage would be also good to provide with this preliminary pure score for this new UI, basically what kind of improvements we are able to get if this UI is going to be implemented. Finally, we go into the discussion about the next steps. And again, the idea is that the next step would be to move into this first win phase, when we would again conduct some additional research to cover maybe edge cases which we didn't identify in the very beginning. Then we definitely would need to do the user testing of the UI, making clickable prototype, giving it to the users, having them doing this 5 to 7 steps and see how they cope with the same process as before with this new interface. And either they feel better about it, either they find it easier to use, and importantly, either we can minimize the amount of clicks or steps they have to do in order to accomplish the process or complete their job. The last thing is how we can help you. You can run your own 6-day demonstrate opportunity sprint with us. So now we kind of set a fixed price of 10,000 euros for this design sprint. So it includes 2.5 consultants working and also travel and accommodation, also to the US. And for now, we see 3 slots left for April and May. Somebody might ask why we should hire the PORT RIGA. I think we have this unique combination of skills when we at the same time speak the language of the UX, and then our native language is still Siebel, but we learn UX language. We still do the interview, we still ask the question, we still figure out solution, but the forum is a little bit different. How you formulate the questions are different, whom you are talking to is a bit different. So I would say that doing Siebel business analysis or solution design and figuring out this UX stuff and coming up with the UI design is speaking different languages, but it's still a language. Also, we have this UI competence, and I think also important thing is that we are able to build awesome Siebel UI using Nexus approach, as we kind of trying to demonstrate in the previous webinar as well. So, and this is the last slide. Move into the sections with questions. So John is asking, will we be covering more details on actual implementation in the next webcast? Again, now we have planned another webinar, which is more technical one, like how do you actually get started with this Nexus approach and then the frameworks in Siebel next week. So on April 2nd at the same EU time, because in America there are these shifts, so the daylights which are not like synchronized with Europe for some reason. So basically 4 o'clock London time. So we have this technical webinar, and it's going to be Oleg presenting. So Oleg is the author of this Nexus Bridge library. There will be Artyom Puzyryov, who built this Midnight UI you see on the background. And also we have another guy who is pure web developer, but he's been helping us with the UI development. So you can get also perspective from pure web developer guy, how it feels for him to do UI development in Siebel. And then I think John will also send agenda for the upcoming roadshows for Siebel. Like, I'm excited that another Grand Tour starts, hopefully soon. And definitely, if there is going to be one somewhere close to our region, like maybe Stockholm, maybe in the middle of May, we will agree with the customers with whom we are now working on this Nexus approach and UI redesign to present their cases. And I hope that by that time we would, for some of the customers, would also complete this first win phase, and we could actually show how this UI would look like and share this user research we've been doing, how usability got improved, how task completion time got improved, and what the overall outcome is. So in some way, we'll try to record this presentation as well, and we will send to everyone who is subscribed to Nexus News here. Okay. More questions from John? Yes, he will be announcing. Plenty of time for registration, and we will announce on the blog siebel.com, Siebel CRM as always. Good. Also, about the status of this Nexus library itself. So now we still carry out the review with Oracle, and then still Nexus Bridge code is available in our internal GitLab. But hopefully in the beginning of April we will finalize this review with Oracle, and thanks Chantan for helping us with this initiative. And then we will move this code to Siebel CRM GitHub, which Duncan maintains, so that everybody without any registrations or anything like that could get access to the code as well. Okay, John's asking, do you find that companies wanting to improve Siebel CRM UX already have in mind what they are looking for or not? Well, it's we were discussing that again, our whole motivation for coming up with a solution how you, in an affordable way, can improve Siebel UX in the big way comes from the actual projects we've been doing with the customers, like Tele2 and also this Finnish government institution. Many of their webinar participants are working on as well, and we have the thing that somehow Siebel UX is not on the level what customer expect from the web application in 2019. And but again, when it comes to, I think, investment into the usability of employee-facing applications, it's still not there, but it is coming. And again, the one question is about the cost, and with this Nexus approach, we try to make it as cost-effective as possible, because on one hand, we are fully reusing all the Siebel configuration, and there is very little additional development we need to do on the Siebel backend. And then when it comes to this new custom UI rendering, we try to maximum extent reuse whatever design standards and UI component libraries which customer has, or again, we take the public ones and style it to fit sort of customer branding guidelines. And as we were kind of telling during the last webinar, I think the whole idea behind web development is, how do you develop these very highly interactive, great-looking applications in the short time as possible. And again, with the design systems, once we reuse these templates, and hopefully Oracle will come up with a new Siebel templates with richer set of components someday as well. With these templates, we save time on not designing every use case from scratch, so that the designers who are working with the UI can reuse certain patterns. And also, as a web developers, we're not trying to make every component in the custom way, but we try to reuse a lot of stuff. So reuse of Siebel configuration, reuse of design patterns or templates, and reuse of web components coming with the frameworks. I think that's kind of the key how we can improve Siebel UI in a very affordable way. Okay. I know it's length answer, but that's my sort of feature I have to get rid of somehow. Okay, well, Olga says time's up, but well, again, I think UX like Facebook. The nature of use cases we have in Siebel is a bit more complex than you have in the Facebook, so it presents an additional challenge from the UX perspective. But definitely, I think it's about kind of having modern look and feel, helping Siebel to accomplish my tasks without making me think too hard, and also saving my time so that I'm not doing repetitive, like dull tasks every time in Siebel UI. And we can go more like why there are like fundamental problems with Siebel UX, and like short answer is that still Siebel UI is driven by Siebel data model. So also, if you start talking to Siebel people, asking them to explain the functionality, they will start talking to you about components they have. So these are accounts, these are contacts, these are opportunities, assets, service requests, and this is what sort of operation you can do in this particular screen, which is having these business components under it. And instead, when we try to adopt this user journey map approach or process view with the steps users have to perform as they work with Siebel, then it demands somewhat different UI design as well. And I think just by figuring out how we can definitely leverage all the Siebel data model, all the validations built in, and all the workflows which are kicking into support, integrations, and business process, we kind of figure out how on the UI we can make this process-driven or user-journey-driven design. It's kind of one way how we can improve Siebel UX quite dramatically. Okay. Okay, test automation, Open UI with Next framework. We have to test it with particular, I think, Siebel tools. So that's probably one of to-do items we have to do as well from our side. But again, we're talking about web application, and if we use the Selenium-based tools, they should be working as well with the web application. So if you can make them work with Siebel, you can make them work with web applications as well, embedded into Siebel in the native way. But we have to test it, John. Okay, I think with that, thank you very much. So we will stop the recording now, and in a couple of days we will process this video and publish it on the YouTube, and then everyone will get a link to this YouTube video as well as the slides I've been presenting today. And again, if we feel like running this 6-day sprint with us, we have like 3 to 4 slots still available in the coming months. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.